There's so many people coming in. Sorry. Okay, we're recording. Welcome, everybody, to today's Lunch and Learn, which is moving from activity-based programs to meaningful engagement. And thank you all for jumping in on time. We're expecting over 100 people today. So Kate, who's up in the corner, will be letting everybody in and monitoring the chat. If you do have questions, pop them in the chat. We will have some time at the end of today's session. Just a very quick introduction because it is only half an hour. My name is Kathy. I am one of the directors at Thrive Aged Care Consultants, if you haven't seen me before. And like I was saying, in the corner, we have Kate Lamont, who is one of our other directors. And together with the team at Thrive, along with a whole lot of other consultants who work with us and have different specialties in different areas. We are very passionate, Kate and I, about providing support and education and expertise to people like yourselves who support older people, no matter what the setting is. So we work with aged care, community care, healthcare as well. So I'm a nursing background, Katie's an OT, and we have both been working for over 40 years together now in the industry, and we are very passionate about supporting older people and supporting the people who support older people. So if you want to learn more about us, we've got a link at the end to our website, etc. But I don't want to waste time talking about us because I want to talk to you about our topic for today. So housekeeping, if you have just jumped in, welcome. This is being recorded and will be uploaded onto YouTube. So feel free to share this around with your teams. We will send you a copy of the slides as well. And if you could just put yourself on mute and use the chat function or raise your hand, Kate will monitor that for me while I go through today's session. So, hot topic for today is talking about meaningful engagement. And we're going to look at where meaningful engagement actually fits into the new strengthened aged care standards, which we know are coming on July 1. We're going to have a look at why we program the way that we do currently. We're going to start to get thinking about a little bit differently about engagement and the opportunities that we offer. We're going to talk about opportunities for change in our workplace, no matter whether it's residential or a community setting, and what that engagement can actually look like. So, aged care, as we know, has changed a lot over the years. Yeah, there's no denying that we are also going to face some new challenges as we continue on into 2025. And it doesn't matter what setting we work in, it doesn't matter if it's residential or the community setting. We know that we've experienced significant change, and we know that come July 1, there are going to be more changes again. So how has it changed and how does it look different? Well, if we look at residential aged care itself, we have much larger facilities. Yeah, so we have facilities that can range from, 30 residents in our small regional areas, all the way up to, 150 residents or perhaps even more. And when we're catering for people, in large numbers, we know that we're going to be providing care for people who have lots of varied and different interests. So our program that we have used in the past that has covered off a lot of different areas and has satisfied a lot of our clients or residents is not necessarily going to be fit for purpose now in 2025. We know that we have lots of clients and residents when they're staying at home for longer. So they might have increased care needs at home, but when they're coming into residential aged care, they are coming in with more complex care needs. So they're coming in with more physical care needs, they're coming in with more cognitive support that's required as well. And if we have residents coming in or clients that we're supporting who have different levels of engagement and abilities, then how do we cater for them with our programming if we have just that standard one approach that we tend to take with our programs? We know that we have rising rates of people living with dementia, and that is both in the community and, like I was saying, when residents are entering aged care, they're entering with more complex or more advanced dementia or cognitive impairment. Along with all that, we have a different generation who are aging. We are heading into the baby boomer era, and they have lots of different expectations. Yeah. So we have different expectations from our clients or our residents ourselves. But we also have different expectations and increased expectations from families and representatives about what we're offering. We have different increased expectations from our managers and also from the Aged Care and Quality and Safety Commission. So when we're talking about compliance focus or the new standards as an example. So these can be seen as challenges about how do we overcome these? How are we going to implement these new standards? How are we going to possibly meet the needs of our 120, 150 residents? But, you know, with challenges, there are always opportunities for growth. And that's how we always like to look at things here at Thrive, is looking at opportunities for growth. And we thought this was a really good quote here, and one that's appropriate for today. And that is that if you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. Yeah. So today, the whole purpose is to get you thinking about and looking at things differently in order to be able to look at how we can make some changes that are going to be effective and are going to support our clients and residents no matter the setting. So let's get started now. And I'm just going to quickly touch on the strengthened aged care standards that are coming in. And let's just start off by saying we're not going to go into these in details because that's not what today's session is about. We did a whole webinar last month, our Lunch and Learn, and that's on YouTube if you want to look back specifically about the strengthened standards. But we are looking specifically for leisure and rec staff, and for our programming wise, relates mostly to standard 7 or the residential community when we're talking about the strengthened standards that come in July 1. And highlighted in red, because we like to just get to the point, are the key statements. Yeah. And standard 7 has an expectation statement that says that the person who is in your care can do the things that they want to do. Yeah. That they can maintain their relationships and that they have connections to community. These are the key words that we want to take out and we want to keep in the back of our mind as we are planning our changed approach to our programs. In that standard as well, there are always the key expectations and key statements. And again, I've highlighted these in red for you. So go back, watch that webinar, but have a look at what is highlighted in red here. And there are really some key words here, aren't there? And that is quality of life, minimising boredom and loneliness, connections and participating in activities out in the outside community, and meaningful activities that engage the person in normal life. Yeah. So they all sound pretty straightforward, don't they? Yeah. And really, if we think about it, isn't that what we would all want for ourselves or for our loved one when we're receiving supports or going into care? Yeah. It's all about quality of life is an important aspect that we want to think about. So what I want you to do as we move through today's session is think about yourself or someone that you care for, and think about what these statements would mean to them or to yourself. Yeah. What is quality of life to you? What does that mean? You know, how would minimizing boredom look for you? Because, and what does loneliness look like? Because we could be living in a facility with 110 other people and still be lonely. Yeah. We could attend activities that you offer every day and every week and still be bored. Yeah. So it's about thinking about things from a different perspective. And I want you to think about as well, the back of your mind, what is meaningful to you, because it is going to be different for everyone because we are all individuals. Yeah. So when we go to work every day, what is it that we are trying to achieve in our role? Yeah. And ultimately, I would suggest that what it is that we want to see is something similar to the image on the right. Yeah. So the image of the people sitting around, looking happy, playing cards, having a coffee. Yeah. Because to me, that looks like this group of people are happy and engaged. Yeah. So how do we achieve that? If that's our ultimate goal when we go to work every day, how do we ensure that our residents or our clients are happy and engaged? Yeah. So if we look at the image on the left, and I'm sure this image is familiar to all, if not most, if not all of you, yeah? The calendar is a familiar sight. And I'm sure that it is something that is a staple in your workplace, because everywhere I go, I tend to see a calendar in one shape, or if not, many different forms of a calendar, yeah? So What I want to think about now is consider these questions relating to your calendar. Who is the calendar actually for? Yeah. Who actually reads the calendar? Why do you have a calendar? And feel free to pop some answers in the chat. Yeah. How popular is your calendar? Do people go and have a look at it every day? Do people rely on it to know what's happening in their as a part of their routine? And how much time does it take you to create? Yeah, because in all of my time, I've heard very regularly that developing the calendar is very time consuming, and it takes a lot of manpower, and it takes away from the opportunity to run these programs because it's taking a number of hours each week to put together. Yeah. And ultimately, when I get down and I ask these questions at facilities I visit, what is this calendar used for? It really comes back to being a document used for communication. And that's fine. Okay. So not saying that there isn't a need for the calendar, and not saying that your residents don't look at it, because maybe in some facilities there are residents who go and need that calendar and they refer to it every day. Yeah. But I just want you to think about who is actually looking at it and where are you investing your time and energy, because we know that we are all limited with resources. Yep. And staffing is a resource. So we just need to be really honest with ourselves about who the calendar that we're developing is actually for and who is using it. Because quite commonly what I hear is the calendar is sent out to representatives, and then the representatives know what is happening with their loved one, or it's sent to management as evidence of what program you have provided, or it is used in the compliance space when you are having a visit from the commission. And again, that's great, but we just need to be really honest with ourselves about what the purpose of the document is. Yeah, because it takes up a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I just want to be clear as well that nowhere in the standards does it say that you must have a calendar. That is something that we have told ourselves over the years, and a bit of rumors that continue on, and we're just something that we have tended to do. Yeah. So we just need to think about that and think about, is this an effective use of our time? And maybe it is. Or is there some way that we could adapt that communication and invest more of our time with that engagement with residents? So just thinking a little bit more strategically about how we use our resources and how we look at things. So this leads me to a couple more questions as well that I want you to consider. And you'll get a copy of these slides, but feel free to write them down. And I really want you to answer these honestly. So when we talk about residential care in particular, and having a look at this picture here, beautiful space, lots of shared spaces that we see when we go around to facilities. Doesn't matter if they're large, they're small, they're public, they're private, not-for-profit, doesn't matter. There's always shared spaces. Yeah. And a picture here represents something that may look familiar to you in your own environment. Yeah. Beautiful space, nice, light, airy, comfortable seats there. And it kind of almost looks like a display home, doesn't it? Yeah. So my question to you is, if you were a new resident walking into your facility and this was your shared space or your lounge room in your new home, how would you feel about using this space for yourself? Yeah. If this was your lounge area, would you feel comfortable walking into your facility that you work in at the moment, into your shared space, and using it for your own personal use? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
what up? Oh, thanks, Kate. Would you feel comfortable going in and accessing that? Because I go around to a lot of facilities and I see lots of these shared spaces, which are absolutely beautiful, great lighting, great seating, and no one is ever in them. And we need to ask ourselves, why is that? Yeah. So I want you to consider that in your own environment. The next question that I have are, what opportunities do you have for meaningful engagement in that area? So for me, if I was to go into that area and I was to sit down with my book, if I felt comfortable and I saw a bit of dust, I would want to get up and dust that area because that's just who I am. So I would, what access do you have to items that you would normally have in your own home? Because residential care, which we're talking about at the moment, is the person's home. So what access do they have to be able to get items like this to be able to dust or to go and grab a book and to make a coffee and to sit in this beautiful shared space and do something that I find meaningful? Yeah, because that's what we're trying to achieve. And when we think about what resources are easily accessible around, how do you find anything to do generally in your shared space or even in your own bedroom? Because my challenge to you is after today's session is to walk into your facility as if it's the first time you have been there. And I want you to walk in as if you are moving in. And I want you to walk around and find something for you to do yourself that you have an interest in. And I think a number of you are going to struggle to find something to engage with. And the reason is because, oh, we'll get into that in a minute, but I want you to have a think about that and have a look around with a different set of eyes. Because when we work in an environment, we get used to seeing things day in and day out. Yep. But what we need to do is look at it with fresh eyes, because we think that we have a lot of items available for people to engage with, but do we actually? Or do we actually put things away at the end of each day? Yeah. Your program that you currently have, which is very reliant on staff and potentially volunteers, operates between a very small period of time. If you go and have a look at your calendar, I can guarantee most of your activities are between 11 and 3 each day, Monday to Friday, perhaps a Saturday, and then on Sunday, it's reliant on movies, church services, and family visits, generally speaking. Okay, so what happens outside of those structured programs? What do people do? What can they access? Where can they find things to engage with in their own home? Okay. And I want you to think about this because I'm talking about programs and I'm talking about engagement, and I'm not talking about all or nothing. I'm not saying get rid of the calendar, get rid of the program altogether. What I'm saying is we oftentimes look at the challenges and the risks before we look at the opportunities. Yep. So, what do I mean by that? We worry about the risks or the challenges if we leave items out for people to engage with when we're not there. We're a bit possessive, right? And it can be based on past experience, it can be based on perceived risk, or it can be actual concerns. But we've heard comments along the years and over many years, we can't leave the paints out because Mary might eat them. Or, Bob will steal the quoits, and then if we leave them out, and then we'll never get them off him again. Or the place looks messy. Yep. So that's why we put all the items away, because management tell us that we need to clean up. Okay. So in a way, we're creating our own issues, aren't we? We're creating our own story about, and we're putting our own barriers into why we can't approach engagement in a different way. Okay. And like I was saying, it may be based on a real concern. We may have a real concern about Mary eating those paints, but sometimes it's a perception that we have just built on over the years. And again, this is the opportunity to pause and to think about how we can look at things a little bit differently. How can we change our approach? Because we also want to be focusing, again, with the new standards on promoting independence and reablement for our residents or our clients. And remembering, again, those key words of quality of life and better engagement for all of our residents. And how are we going to do that? We need to focus on the benefits versus the risks. And sometimes looking at the benefits is the bit that we miss out when we're looking at opportunities. Okay. We focus on what could go wrong rather than what could go right. And we also tend to forget that when we are working in residential care in particular, that is the person's home. We are working in their home. They are not living in our workspace. So we need to weigh up that, having a messy looking shared space versus what makes our residents happy and gives them quality of life and meaning, and having access to items that they can use in their own home. Okay. So let's have a look at what these definitions even mean. Let's go right back. Okay. And meaningful is going to, something that's meaningful to me might not be meaningful to you. And that's what we need to be aware of. So meaningful is something serious, important, or worthwhile to the person. Yep. Purposeful is having a useful purpose, doing something with meaning, not doing something just to fill in time. Okay. And quality of life. So the standard of health or comfort and happiness that is experienced by an individual or a group. So again, I want you to think about this question as you leave today. If you were living in residential aged care facility, Or you're going to a program that's operated in the community, because I've worked in those as well. How would you want to be spending your days? Yeah. Would you wanting to be fitting into a one size fits all program, which is what we're doing at the moment generally? Okay. Or would you want to be participating and contributing to your home that you're living in that is meaningful to you? Now, for example, to me, I would quite like cleaning. I don't love cleaning. It's not high on my priority list each day, but I do enjoy cleaning, and I get a sense of satisfaction when I see that dusty table, when I've dusted it off and it's clean, or I've run the broom over the kitchen and swept up. I get a sense of satisfaction out of that. I feel like I've achieved my purpose. I am not going to feel satisfied if I'm in a cooking class, or if I am gardening, or if I am sitting playing bingo, because none of those things interest me at all. They have no meaning to me. But if there is nothing else available for me to do, then I probably would engage, or I would isolate myself in my room and be lonely or bored. Yep, which is what we're trying to avoid. I don't want to be filling in time when I'm older. I want to be useful. I'm a very busy person. I'm not going to stop being busy when I'm 80. I can tell you right now. I want to be engaged, and I want to feel like I have a purpose behind what I am doing. So we need to think about that as well. And we need to think about how we can enable a person to feel like they have purpose, or that they have meaningful roles in their own home. But for this to be able to happen, we need to set up the environment for success in both the shared space and in personal spaces, such as in the person's bedroom. So when we're thinking about groups or individuals who we struggle to cater for the most, and this is what we commonly hear across all of our courses and when we're working with services directly, who are the group that we struggle to engage with the most? And that is usually people who have higher physical care needs. So we're reliant on staff to get them out of bed, get them into a princess chair, a wheelchair, get them up and moving. And those who have more higher cognitive care needs. Yeah. So what does that come down to? These are the residents who don't particularly want to or can't engage in our group activities. So again, we've got that challenge of how do we cater for this group without putting that square peg in that round hole? We also have residents who choose to stay in their rooms. And another question that we want to ask ourselves is, why is that? Because maybe it's their personality type. Maybe they're not social people, and that's okay as well. Just because you've moved into residential care doesn't mean that all of a sudden you need to be wanting to spend your time with 20 other people at a group activity. It is okay to want to maintain your distance, maintain your privacy, and stay in your own room. It may also be, though, that they're not interested in what is available out in your common areas. Maybe that's the reason why they're not coming out of their room. What is actually available? And this comes back to that first task that I've sent you, to walk around and find something useful for you to do. If you think of a resident who stays in the room quite often, think about what their interests are, and then come out into the general area and see what you could engage in that is based on those interests. Because sometimes you'll find that there actually isn't anything, and maybe that is why that they are staying in their room and not engaging. Maybe it relates to care needs as well. And again, that's something that we need to consider is in the person's own room, because we might have items for engagement. We can have rooms that are full of stuff that are relatable to that person, but how accessible is it to them? How close is it for them to be able to access if they're in a princess chair? Because I can't tell you the amount of times I've gone in to visit somebody and they're in a princess chair in the middle of their room, and all of their items are amazing, but they're all on the outskirts of the room. The person in the princess chair can't reach them. So what I want you to do as well after today is to go into 3 residents' rooms, 3 residents who don't tend to come out and who spend their time alone or don't engage in our programs. And I want you to see how they are set up in their room, because we can have items for engagement in there, but we don't necessarily have them within reach. And that's a small change that we can make. So moving on to how can we make these simple changes and what do they look like? We are all about kiss and SB. So keep it simple. We are not stupid. We are busy, though. okay? We are all about practical solutions here. And it all comes down to these things. How can we make simple changes to our environment to encourage meaningful activity? How can we encourage our residents to feel at home in their own home? And how can we make better uses of our resources, being us as well, to be more effective? And how can we have a look at this? We need to look at our engagement opportunities, okay? So number one, go around and look at those shared spaces. Because I can guarantee, even if you have a small facility, you will have shared spaces that are not utilised effectively. And why is that? Go and have a look around, make a note, and then ask your residents why they don't access that space. Because maybe there is an issue. Maybe it's not comfortable. Maybe there's nothing to do there. Maybe they don't feel like it's a space that is open for them to use. We cannot make assumptions. We need to ask questions. We need to ask why. Go into your resident rooms and look at those in particular residents who don't like to come out or are less likely to engage in group programs. Are they set up for engagement in their own setting, in their own rooms? Maybe some residents are, maybe some residents aren't. Have a look at those shared spaces and those resident rooms with a different set of eyes. So you've gone to your shared spaces, you've asked your residents why they don't use it, and they say, oh, I didn't think it's not really comfortable, or there's nothing to do there, or it's a long walk. So use that information and ask your residents what they would like in that space, in their own home, and then set up that space based on their feedback. Things like an art area is a simple example. Have a desk, have paints, pencils, canvases, paper, pencils, everything in that one area, okay? And let go of the concern that somebody is going to eat, steal, pilfer of those items, okay? You look at the risks, you weigh them up, and you look at the benefits of that as well, and you monitor to see how it's going. Is it effective, or are we losing all of our supplies, and what's happening? Do we need to do things a little bit differently? But let's not start off with a negative. Let's look at the benefits of what might be effective and what might work well. Working with purpose as well, okay? So working with people's abilities to complete activities with a purpose. So not just doing, so we can have these group activities on your calendar. That's great. But what's the purpose of your art group? Are we going there just to do mindful colouring, which might be okay sometimes, but how can we flip that around? How can we make it more purposeful? How can we contribute, thank you, Kate, to the community? So as a very quick example, I had a client in a community program who lived with dementia. Based on feedback from the clients who were going to a physiotherapy program, they walked down a long corridor, which was white walls, white floor, white doors, very hard to navigate and orientate. So based on their feedback, these are people living with dementia. They wanted to put something up to help with wayfinding. One of the clients who was in that group was an artist. He painted paintings that were then used in that corridor to help with wayfinding. They're still there today. This was 6 years ago. They're amazing. That is doing something with purpose, not just painting for the sake of painting. Okay, so thinking about what can we do a little bit differently with our groups as well. And thinking about, signage, setting the environment up as well with signage. So you cannot assume that people know that they're able to access items. Because if you've lived in an environment for a long time and you have never gone there, then you're not all of a sudden going to be aware that you can go and access these items, okay? So make sure you've got good signage up and that you have really good communication to all of your staff, not just your leisure and rec team, not just your nursing team, your carers, your cleaners, your food staff, your representatives, your residents. Everyone needs to know that these items are here to access. And particularly, please let your cleaning staff know why these items are out. Don't just tell them we're leaving them out and don't put them away. You need to explain why, because their role is to clean and tidy. And if they have, for the last 10 years, put all of these items away, they're not just going to stop doing it because you've asked them to. You need to explain the why behind the change that you are putting in place. And that's how we get effective change happening. Finally, as I've got 1 minute left, a few more slides left, but we need to learn to let go of the reins. Okay, we want to do an amazing job. Leisure and rec staff are amazing. We love working with you guys in particular. We need to let go of the reins though, because we tell ourselves we need to do absolutely everything and we don't. Okay, so let go and think, do you really need to be there to lead a group or to set up a group? Can it be led by a resident? Can it be led by a volunteer? Because another example, we had somebody come and talk about how a new resident had come in and really wanted to have an art class. And this person was saying, oh, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to fit it into the week. I need to probably adjust this class and maybe this person will come. And then as we were talking through it, you could see the light bulb in her head go off and say, actually, do I need to be there? Can this resident, why can't this resident could run the group? She could actually teach other people. Oh, and then we come up with a solution. Okay, so letting go of the reins, you do not need to be in control of everything. It's about looking at things, remembering from a different perspective. So here are some ideas to get started. Okay, so having those items out and available, cleaning items, rags to be able to dust, a broom, gardening equipment. Yeah, take it out of the locked doors and put them out and see how much use they get. Setting up, thinking about your programs or your group programs and what are their purpose, and can we tweak them a little so they have more of a meaning and purpose behind them, not just a time filler. Yeah. Looking at your residents, how can they lead programs themselves? And this is an example of that artwork that I was talking about earlier. How amazing is that? And looking at those shared spaces and making sure that they are set up to be used based on resident feedback and resident interest as well. And this all supports you with the new standards, because the new standards are all about that promoting independence and reablement as well. So it's ticking a whole lot of boxes. So in summary, demographics of clients are changing and we need to adapt our changing to those changing needs and expectations. Yeah, it is not an all or nothing approach. You can have those structured activities, but we also shouldn't only have them as the only option. Okay, we need to look at our environment and set that up and make sure that our residents or our clients in that community setting feel able to engage in that environment as if it is their own. And I've done that in the community program as well. The best feedback that I received was from multiple clients saying, this feels like my second home. And that is why we set that was the biggest achievement out of that, because that is how the environment was set up so that they could come in and they could access the items as they wish. Weigh up the risks and benefits in setting up your engagement opportunities. Don't just focus on the risks and don't focus on what could go wrong. Focus on what could go right. Let go of the reins and consider how you can use your resources more effectively. What can you hand over to other people to empower them, including your residents? Try something as a test and see how you go. And really key point is communicate, communicate, communicate. Like I was saying, we cannot assume that people understand the why behind why we are doing things. And that is often why things don't go to plan, is because we haven't explained the rationale behind it to all of our team members. Yeah. So get everybody on board, have a good chat, ask everyone for their opinion. Yeah. I'm a couple of minutes over. I will send you these slides. I hope you found today useful. We do have a Leisure and Rec Masterclass coming up on the 26th of March. We will send you the link for that in the email. We would love your feedback. Please be honest about how you found today's session and what topics you would like. We run these lunch and learns every month, so we do them based on feedback from you guys. So send through your topics and we will send you this link in the email as well with the slides. And thank you very much. I will stop the recording, and if you have questions, feel free to stay on. But otherwise, thank you very much. 4 minutes over. And have a great day.
Hey, Kathy, we have a question